What's up, everybody? Joe Brown here. This is the Heresy Financial Show, and today we are talking about one of the most controversial topics going on right now, which is student debt forgiveness. Many politicians are talking about this right now. Some politicians saying, hey, we absolutely have to do this. Other politicians saying, absolutely not, we will never do this. And so today, I'm going to talk about the real impact of how student loan forgiveness would impact the economy and our country. And fair warning, don't say I didn't warn you, this is going to make a lot of people mad. And so if that ends up being you at the end of this video, don't say I didn't warn you. Ready? Let's dive in. All right, so not only are many politicians saying, hey, we need to do just a massive debt forgiveness of all student loans, but we are seeing more and more steps being taken towards this every day, with just recently being announced the Biden administration canceling student debt for 500,000 students from Corinthian colleges. So my goal here is to provide you with the truth and the facts about what this would actually do. We're going to push it to its extreme, and let's just say all student debt is wiped out, because end results of that, and then you say, okay, well, only half student debt or a certain amount, the results of that would just be muted from the extreme. And so we're going to go all the way to the extreme and show, okay, what would the results of that actually be? But first, we're going to go through my student loan story, because I'd like to frame this from the proper perspective moving forward. So when I graduated college, I got married very soon after. Between my wife and I, we had $30,000 in student debt. Now, by today's standards, I get it. That doesn't sound like a lot, but for us, it was a ton. At the time, I was actually making less than minimum wage. So between my wife and I, we had $30,000 in student debt. Most of it was mine, and we realized we were in trouble. We were not making a lot of money. I started reading about the debt snowball, the Dave Ramsey stuff, personal money management, and we buckled down. I got a better job. We started shoveling as much money as possible towards paying off our student loans and got to work. And it was a very tough year, but in less than a year, we were able to get rid of all of our student debt. And at the time, I had coworkers, I had friends saying, you're being too extreme. You're being ridiculous. Live a little bit. When was the last time you broke your budget? When was the last time you didn't stick to your budget? I was like, guys, you have no idea. I'm getting so far ahead of you so quickly by buckling down, staying disciplined, and they couldn't see it because there's nothing you can see as a result of getting back to zero quickly, right? It's not like I was driving better cars or living in a better place, but all of my friends, a lot of my family, people that I was around, they were all driving better cars. They were all upgrading their lifestyles. They were living in way better places than my wife and I chose to live in. And it was a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there, and my wife and I made very difficult choices to live in a bad area, to eat really cheap food. Like literally every area of our life, we decided we're going to buckle down as hard as possible. And the people around us chose in all of those areas to live a little bit better, live a little bit beyond their means, or live a little bit maybe still bit below their means, but far above, where I was thinking, hey, we need to buckle down. And throughout that time, it was like a fire. It was like a forge going in and coming out stronger on the other side, because the discipline that my wife and I were able to build during that time bled over into everything from there. Set us up for massive success, was the foundation for literally every major financial step we've ever made, because we were able to build the practices and the habits and the discipline that translated over to any time we wanted to accomplish a new goal, we were able to do so. And when we did eventually start upgrading our lifestyle, we were doing it from such a lower base that we had a lot of room to grow, that, we talk about this hedonic adjustment where you're on this treadmill and you keep on upgrading your lifestyle as you upgrade your income. We were starting off from such a lower base that it was like, hey, just to drive a car that had an air conditioner that worked properly was like a big step up. And so all that to say, paying off our student loans set us up for massive success. The reason I bring that story up right now is because I believe truly the worst impact of forgiveness of student debt will be robbing individuals of the opportunity to build a discipline that will set themselves up for success later on. 100%. Because if I did not have to go through that, if I kind of got a blank check, I would have never had to build the discipline and build the practices. I'd have been able to go right along living as I always had. When I was in college, the reason why that debt came about was not because I was forced into it. I had a full ride scholarship. I had a job. I took out extra debt, took out my student loans just so I'd have some spending money. Basically spent it all on fast food. And so it wasn't because of need. It was because of a lack of discipline that I got myself into that position. So if I never had to pay the consequences of that, I would have never built the discipline I needed to get myself to where I am today. And so I truly believe that the number one worst consequence of paying off or forgiving student loans will be robbing individuals of the opportunity to build the discipline that they need in order to become financially successful. That's it. Now you might ask, okay, well, what about the fairness issue and what about the inflation issue? We'll get to that. The point is, I think the biggest issue with student loan forgiveness is an individual one where individuals won't become more financially successful or as financially successful as they could have if they have to work through that and build those practices themselves. Okay, so what about the fairness issue? Because you're probably thinking just as I have thought before, well, for those of you like me and those of us who have worked so hard that buckled down and paid all that debt off, we had to work our butts off to get through that. And now there are a lot of people who are potentially not going to have to do that. That's not fair, right? Well, maybe not. Because look at it this way. I was given the opportunity to pay off my debt and have to work for it. And that's what I attribute a lot of my financial success to. Maybe most of it. Everybody who doesn't get that opportunity is getting robbed of that. So who's got the better end of the deal here? I think I got the better end of the deal. I'm so thankful nobody forgave my student debt because it got me to where I am today. Now, you say, okay, but you still had to work for something. You said you were going to pay it off. You did. All these other people are getting a free ride. I'd like to bring up a parable. It's a story that Jesus told his disciples in the Bible. There was this parable where Jesus talked about a master of a business. He was a farmer. He went into town and he said, hey, I need some people to come work my field for the day. Some people raised their hands, so he took them back and he said, okay, I'll pay you this much. Let's just say $50 for the day. And then about halfway through the day, he realized he needed some more help. So he went back into town and he said, hey, anybody still needs some work? And there were still some people there. So he said, okay, I'll give you guys $50. Come work for the rest of the day. And so at the end of the day, all the laborers were leaving the field and he was giving everybody their pay for the day. So the first guys that he hired, he was like, hey, here's your $50 that I promised you. And they said, thanks. Here's your $50 that I promised you. They said, thanks. And then the guys who came in halfway through the day that were hired for that second half of the day, they hadn't worked all day long. Remember, they were promised $50 too. So the master gave them $50 each. And the first guys turned around, they're like, wait a second, that's not fair. They worked for half a day, we worked for the whole day, but we got paid the same amount. The master said to them, did I not give you what I promised you? I said, would you work for me for the full day for $50? What did you say? You said yes. I asked them the same thing at a different time. They said yes. It's not hurting you at all that I gave them $50 and I gave you $50. You're just jealous and envious because you thought since I was giving them $50 that you should get more. But I gave you exactly what I promised you. And that's the attitude I think that we should have here because to be honest, at the end of the day, we don't have any control over what they decide to do, over what politicians decide to do, if they decide to forgive all the debt, some of the debt, or none of the debt. And if they do, it's no skin off our teeth. It doesn't impact me at all. The only thing it does, in my opinion, is it stunts the growth. It hurts those who receive that gift because it robs them of the opportunity to build that grit. And so it's not hurting me at all for them to get their debt forgiven. And now we get to the big issue, which everybody is talking about right now, which is inflation. People are saying, hey, this is going to contribute a lot to inflation, and here's why. When you pay off debt, money is leaving existence, because when you took out that loan, it was money that was being lent into existence. That money didn't exist before. It wasn't transferred from somebody else's bank account. That money was loaned into existence. And now when you pay it back, as that debt gets paid off, that money you are earning, you are getting from out of circulation. You're selling something, selling your time, your labor, products, whatever, and you're paying off that debt. Now the money supply is shrinking as a result of that. So paying off debt has a deflationary force on the money supply. So if you wipe out that deflationary force, now you have less of a deflationary force in the system overall. Second thing that happens is now, if I was paying $100, $200 a month towards my student loans, now I don't have to anymore. That's money I can do something else with, right? So that will contribute to inflation, right? Yes, technically, but not that much. The disposable income is not going to change drastically because these student loans are paid back over such a long period of time that many people won't be drastically increasing their spending right now. In fact, given the hard times that everybody is going through right now, many people will choose to save that money. Now, you're probably thinking nobody's going to be able to save that money because everybody's experiencing inflation, people can't make ends meet, but you're forgetting who has this debt. Many people, most of the people with a lot of student debt are people who have high-paying jobs. They went all through college. The people with the most debt went 4 years, 8 years of college and have high-paying jobs. So these are people who are not experiencing much pain from the inflation right now. These are people who already have disposable income. The people who buy assets instead of stuff with their disposable income. The people who have savings accounts and are not living paycheck to paycheck. And so we are not going to see as much of an impact on inflation as many people are making it seem if all student debt is wiped out. It is just being overblown by many people. Now, at this point, it probably sounds like I am making a big case to just wipe out everybody's debt. It's exactly the opposite. I'm saying that as an individual, it does me no benefit to complain or get resentful or get bitter about anybody else getting their debt forgiven. I can't control whether it happens or not, and I feel like pity for them, sorrow for people who are going to get their debt forgiven because they're not given the opportunity that I was, which was building the practices and the habits and the discipline to get out of it themselves. So what do I think is the proper solution then? I think the proper solution is to stop subsidizing these loans in the first place. If we go back 50 years, this didn't used to happen. Students graduating high school, going into college, are the least creditworthy people in existence. No job history, no assets, no income to their name, no proven track record of skills that could provide income in the future, and we are saddling these people up with debt. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So why are the banks lending these kids money? Well, it's because the government is subsidizing and guaranteeing these loans. If we go back a few decades, it didn't used to happen. There's no way banks would loan money to students. There's no guarantee. There's very little chance you'd ever get that money back. But the government wanted more people to go to college, and so they said, we will guarantee that these loans get paid back. If the student somehow can't pay them back, the government will step in. The government subsidizes these loans as well. And so it created this massive risk-free opportunity for financial institutions to come in and start giving purchasing power to students. What did that do to the product they were buying? It blew up the price of it because you suddenly have a big increase in purchasing power for one specific product. It's gonna make the demand go up for it, which is gonna make the price go up for it. Did the quality go up? Absolutely not. Did the price go up? Yes, 100%. And so we had a few generations of people who were told, at all costs, no matter what, just get a degree because you'll get a better job no matter what the degree is. And many people are now realizing that wasn't true. It's not the case. So thankfully, many young people today realize this, and there are fewer young people going to college, which I think is a fantastic thing. Unless you're going to a cheaper college, you're working your way through, you're getting a real skill like a STEM, computer programming, things like that offer real returns on your investment. But for most people, most degrees, absolutely worthless. And so the solution is not to forgive these students of the debt that they accumulated. The solution is to stop subsidizing and guaranteeing it in the first place. It creates false demand for an inferior product that shoves a bunch of people into the system and gets them saddled with debt for the rest of their lives. The solution is not to let the banks off scot-free and the universities off scot-free for loading students up with this guaranteed debt and getting them a product that's not serving them for the rest of their life. The solution is to end that system once and for all. Let a bunch of universities collapse. Let a bunch of banks collapse, a bunch of financial institutions that survive on student loans collapse. Let them go under. Stop subsidizing, stop guaranteeing, and you will fix the problem. You will stop having people take on a bunch of debt because they won't be able to qualify for it anymore because the product that they're getting is inferior and it's not resulting in an ROI, a return on that investment. It's not resulting in anything that they could get without that product. But guess what? That's a painful solution. There's going to be some people with job losses. There's going to be some people with influence that will get hurt. And so that's why these solutions, the right solutions that are typically short-term painful but long-term very beneficial, they're not the ones that are going to go through because they are not politically expedient. It's far better as a politician to just promise everybody and say, I will make your pain go away, I'll forgive your debt, and we will all live happily ever after. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm sorry if I offended you, but those are the facts. Have a great day.